Um, this presentation is on upper class society in the Victorian era. The upper class people mainly gained their money from inheritance and investments. They did not work at all, such as the Reeds, Mr. Rochester, and eventually Jane at the end of Jane Eyre, who gains all of her money and doesn't have to work. Daily life during the Victorian era. Etiquette was extremely important. People were judged on how they dressed up. If one burped or if a man looked the wrong way at a woman, it was extremely socially unacceptable. Social status was very important, and parties and gatherings were, such as in Jane Eyre when they have their big party at Thornfield, and the only people who are accepted there are the guests and not Jane because she is a governess. Um, Women were very focused on marriage. Their entire existence was to get married and have children by having class and representing their husbands, by wearing beautiful clothes and presenting themselves well. They were trying to be very gentle, and they focused on charity work. While men would focus mostly on women, gambling, and clothes and spend all of their money on that. Coffee was important for discussion because they would discuss politics over it, and education was extremely important. Um, Depending on where you went to school, that determined who your friends were and what your social status was. What people would do for leisure, they would go to tea gardens or pleasure gardens where they would have sports such as races, archery, boxing, and football. Music halls and theaters also became very popular, such as the Britannia Theatre, which Charles Dickens attended, and Hoxton Hall. Parks also became very popular, where people would go boating, and there would also be sports areas. Marriage was very patriarchal in the Victorian era for the higher class. Men decided marriage. The women got married into a man's family, and marriage was based on her actions, her beauty, his feelings towards her, and her wealth and status. The women had no say on marriage, and they would often court through songs, dancing, gifts, and parties and social events. Education for men in the Victorian era, they would usually have a governess or tutor when they were younger until they could attend schools like Eton, Winchester, or Westminster, where they studied the classics such as ancient Greece and Rome. And once they were old enough, they would go to Oxford or Cambridge. Oxford usually studied mostly government, and a lot of people who graduated there, men who graduated there, went into Parliament. And Cambridge, the men who graduated from there usually went into science or technology. Some men were taught completely by a tutor, but schools gave you a social life, good connections, and status. Women, on the other hand, were not taught as much. They were usually taught by a governess, such as Adele, or they went to boarding school, like Jane did. They were not allowed to go to universities. They usually studied French, drawing, music, dancing, and maybe sewing or embroidery. So that's our presentation on the higher class of the Victorian era.